The Galactic Dominion had long prided itself on order. Every species under its rule adhered to a strict hierarchy, a system perfected over millennia. Efficiency was their creed, strength their law. Then humanity happened. At first, Earth was an afterthought, a minor planet tucked away in an insignificant sector. The Dominion's fleet had cataloged it, tagged it as primitive and erratic, and left it alone. That was their first mistake. The second was underestimating how dangerous desperation made humans. The war began without fanfare. One crisp morning, the sky over Earth split open, and the Dominion's warships descended like a curtain of metallic judgment. Their message was brief: compliance or extinction. Humanity, ever defiant, chose neither. For 72 hours, resistance forces scrambled, barely able to react before Dominion battalions tore through their defenses. The aliens were methodical, their weapons clean, efficient, and horrifyingly precise. Plasma bombardments reduced cities to glass craters. AI-coordinated strikes neutralized communication grids. The war, by every logical metric, should have ended right then. But humans were not logical. The Dominion's high command had expected surrender, but instead, they got something else. Humans fought like creatures unhinged by reality. Without proper coordination, outgunned and outmatched, they still found ways to bleed the enemy. An old man in New York managed to single-handedly take down an armored patrol by rolling refrigerators off his apartment complex. A Midwest farmer strapped explosives to his tractor, drove it straight into a Dominion supply convoy, and detonated himself while yelling something about freedom and beer. A group of teenagers, armed with nothing but Wi-Fi routers and old laptops, hacked into Dominion battle mechs and forced them to broadcast Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up in an infinite loop across the fleet's emergency channels. This was not a war of technology. This was a war of madness. The Dominion, beings of pure efficiency, did not understand madness. They saw the death toll rising, but could not grasp the absurdity of it. No species should have been able to fight back this way. It was unnatural. It was terrifying. So, the Emperor of the Galactic Dominion, a being whose name could only be pronounced through a series of unpleasant throat clicks, issued the final order. Humanity was to be erased. The edict was broadcast across every Dominion-controlled world. The response, however, was not fear nor surrender. It was something far worse. It was a bounty contract. The transmission, sent from a dying outpost on the edge of known space, was short and simple. 1 trillion credits to whoever ends the Dominion. It was absurd, laughable. Yet, in a galaxy filled with the desperate and the insane, such an offer was irresistible. And this is where Max and Lila Stone entered the story. They were sitting in a dive bar on a lawless moon when the bounty message crackled over the interstellar network. The bar was the kind of place where you could get a drink, lose a limb in a knife fight, and make lifelong enemies in the span of an hour. It was home. Max took a long sip of his drink, something blue, potent, and possibly illegal, before leaning back. 1 trillion credits, he mused, watching the other patrons react. Conversations broke into chaos. Mercenaries barked into comms. Smugglers darted for their ships. Every lowlife in the galaxy was about to race straight into a war zone. Lila smirked, stirring her drink with a tiny umbrella. You thinking what I'm thinking? Max exhaled. That we have no business running into a war we can't win. No, that we're already wanted in 6 systems. What's a 7th? Max grinned. Fair point. Lila, tactical genius, deadeye sniper, and the only woman who could outdrink a reptilian warlord, flipped open a holomap. The Dominion's soft spots are logistics and bureaucracy. Cut one, and they panic. Cut both, and they crumble. Max set his drink down. So, we hit them where they feel safe. Lila nodded. We take the fight to their doorstep. A pause. Then laughter. They laughed because it was insane, because it was suicide, because no one else in the galaxy would even consider it. But they weren't like the rest of the galaxy. Max cracked his knuckles. All right, honey. Let's go break an empire. 2 days later, a Dominion battleship, was ripped out of hyperspace near the outer rim. It was routine patrol, meant to ensure no human stragglers escaped their dying planet. Then, the hijacked freighter crashed into its hull. The Dominion captain barely had time to react before his ship systems flickered with warning lights. His crew scrambled, trying to make sense of the chaos. Then the main screen lit up with a message, written in jagged human script. Surprise, mother asterisk heirs, asterisk asterisk. The freighter's cargo bay doors slammed open, and out poured two heavily armed lunatics. Max went in first, guns blazing, a walking hurricane of destruction. Dominion soldiers, disciplined and trained for conventional war, had never encountered anything quite like him. He shot, punched, stabbed, and at one point threw an entire alien down an elevator shaft while shouting, "This is for Bruce Willis." Lila followed with precision. She didn't waste ammo. Every shot counted. She downed 3 guards with headshots before even stepping onto the deck. The ship's commander, a high-ranking Dominion officer, sputtered in disbelief. "Humans." "Here." Max grinned, leveling his weapon. "We heard you had a human problem." You're bounty hunters." Lila corrected him, reloading. "Correction, the bounty hunters." The captain snarled, reaching for a control panel. Lila shot it out of his hand before he could activate the alarms. Max rolled his shoulders. "All right, pal. Here's how this goes. You give us the ship, we let you limp away." The captain bared his teeth. "Never." Max sighed. "Didn't think so." An hour later, the Dominion battleship was theirs. From its bridge, Lila studied the star maps. They'll be sending reinforcements soon. Max plopped down into the captain's chair, spinning it playfully. "Let M. We've got their ship now." Lila eyed him. "You don't have a plan yet, do you?" He grinned. "Nope. But I was thinking." "Improvise," she finished, rolling her eyes. "We're going to die." "Probably." Max shrugged, then turned to the control panel. "But first, let's introduce ourselves." With a few keystrokes, he hacked into the Dominion's communication network. Across the Empire, on every screen, in every warship, in every government office, a single message appeared. "To the Galactic Dominion. You've pissed off the wrong species. See you soon." Then, just to add insult to injury, he programmed every ship in the Dominion fleet to play Eye of the Tiger on loop. Lila shook her head as the song blasted through the ship. "They're going to kill us." Max grinned, holstering his weapon. "Not before we make them regret starting this war." And with that, the real fight began. The Galactic Dominion did not believe in fear. Its doctrine was built on absolute control, its military an unshakable force. When something did not comply, it was eradicated, purged with swift precision. But for the first time in centuries, the Dominion was afraid. It had begun as an anomaly, an unexpected loss of communication from a routine patrol ship. A blip, nothing more. Then another ship went dark. And another. Within hours, panic spread through the high command like a virus. Reports flooded in inconsistent and chaotic, filled with words that no Dominion strategist could understand. Hijacked. Ambushed. Impossible. The intelligence division scrambled to make sense of the scattered data, piecing together what they could from garbled distress calls and hacked transmissions. The conclusion was absurd, yet undeniable. 2 humans had taken a Dominion battleship and were now actively hunting their fleet. The first real footage of the attackers came from a doomed frigate's security logs. A grainy, chaotic video showed a man, human, muscular, clad in tactical armor, charging through a Dominion corridor with reckless abandon. He fired weapons in both hands, shouting something unintelligible. Upon closer analysis, the translation software deciphered his words, "Say hello to my little friends." The second attacker, a woman with sharp eyes and a sniper rifle, operated with chilling efficiency. Unlike the man, she did not waste movement. She fired only when necessary, never missing a shot. The crew barely had time to react before she moved to another vantage point, always one step ahead. The footage ended with the Dominion crew being thrown into zero gravity as the ship was explosively decompressed. The last thing recorded was the man laughing before the camera feed cut out. The High Chancellor of the Dominion reviewed the evidence in stunned silence. He had witnessed planetary invasions, the destruction of entire civilizations, but never had he seen something so reckless. "How is this possible?" he demanded. The room was silent. No one dared answer. Finally, an intelligence officer spoke. "Sir, they fight illogically." The Chancellor narrowed his eyes. "Explain." The officer hesitated, as if the words themselves felt absurd. "They don't adhere to military tactics. They charge into situations that should guarantee death and somehow survive. They use unpredictable strategies. One of them uploaded a human virus into our fleet's communication array." The Chancellor frowned. "What kind of virus?" The officer swallowed. "Something called Clippy." Silence. "What does it do?" the Chancellor asked. "Every time we attempt to open strategic files, it asks if we require assistance in writing a document." The Chancellor exhaled sharply. "How do we remove it?" "We can't," the officer admitted. "It has integrated itself into the fleet systems. Every attempt to delete it results in the message. It looks like you're trying to remove Clippy. Are you sure you want to do that?" The Chancellor's eye twitched. "Find these humans. Kill them." The order was sent across the Dominion. Every fleet mobilized. Every bounty hunter was called. The galaxy's most dangerous mercenaries took up the contract, eager for the unprecedented reward offered. But the humans didn't hide. They attacked. A Dominion supply convoy on the Outer Rim was the first to feel their wrath. The flagship, the Imperator, was a massive city-sized vessel, bristling with weapons and escorted by 4 cruisers. It was a fortress in space. Max and Lila took it anyway. The first sign of trouble came when the ship's proximity alarms blared, warning of an unauthorized vessel approaching at high speed. The officer on deck barely had time to react before something completely absurd, appeared on the main view screen. A Dominion patrol ship, stolen days earlier, was hurtling towards them at full speed. A single message was broadcast from the ship speakers. "You just lost the game." Then it crashed directly into the Imperator's main hangar. Max and Lila emerged from the wreckage, coughing through smoke. Max dusted himself off. "Not my smoothest landing, but effective." Lila checked her rifle. "You just kamikazed a battleship. I like to make an entrance." The Dominion security forces poured into the hangar, weapons raised. Max grinned. "Shall we?" Lila sighed. "You owe me dinner for this." Then the shooting started. Max fought like a man who had seen too many action movies and thought, "Yeah, I can do that." He flipped over cover, kicked an alien in the face, fired a stolen plasma rifle one-handed, while throwing a grenade with the other. Dominion soldiers, trained for structured warfare, had no idea how to counter something so erratic. Lila, on the other hand, was cold efficiency. Every shot found its mark. When Max drew attention, she picked off targets from the shadows. At one point, she hijacked the security cameras, relaying enemy positions to Max through their comms. "They're flanking you on the left." Max turned, saw 4 Dominion soldiers charging. He yanked a combat knife from his belt, hurled it through the air, and embedded it squarely in the nearest alien's throat. The others hesitated just long enough for him to blast them away. "Handled," he said. "Messy," Lila replied. They fought their way through the ship, leaving destruction in their wake. Explosions rocked the corridors as they sabotaged fuel lines, hacked weapon systems, and turned the ship's automated defenses against its own crew. By the time they reached the command deck, alarms were blaring across the Imperator. The ship's captain, a reptilian Dominion officer with dark, glistening scales, stood with his remaining guards, a plasma sword in hand. You are insane." Max grinned. "Yeah, we get that a lot." The captain snarled, tightening his grip. "You cannot possibly win. The Dominion is eternal." Lila tilted her head. "Eternal, huh?" She held up a small, blinking device. "Then this detonator is about to make history." The captain's eyes widened. "What did you?" Max cut him off. "She rigged your reactor. You've got 5 minutes before this whole ship becomes an artificial sun." The captain hissed. "You'll die too." Max shrugged. We'll see." Lila tapped a button on her wrist. A nearby maintenance hatch popped open. Escape route. Escape route, Max confirmed. The Dominion soldiers hesitated. Shoot them, the captain roared. Lila hit another button. A blast door slammed shut between them and the enemy. Max gave a mock salute as they backed toward the hatch. Pleasure doing business. Then they dropped into the maintenance shaft, sliding down into the lower decks. Behind them, the reactor alarms escalated. The ship was reaching critical failure. They reached the escape pods with seconds to spare. As they strapped in, Lila exhaled. I really hope you actually planned this part. Max grinned. I mean, mostly. She glared at him. The escape pod launched. Behind them, the Imperator exploded in a brilliant cascade of fire and debris, its destruction visible from orbit. Their pod hurtled through space, bouncing wildly before stabilizing. Lila checked their coordinates. We're drifting toward Dominion space. Max leaned back. Good. She gave him a look. Good. He smirked. They sent their best after us. Didn't work. Now they're scared. Let's make them terrified. Lila raised an eyebrow. Got something in mind? Max's grin widened. Oh yeah. Let's hijack a dreadnought. The Dominion High Command convened in the Central War Chamber, a vast obsidian hall filled with holographic projections of the galaxy. The room, normally a place of calculated strategies and cold precision, was now filled with something alien to them: panic. A single, undeniable fact hung over them like a death sentence. They were losing. Not to an army, not to a fleet, to two humans. It defied logic. Dominion forces outnumbered them by the billions. They had crushed entire civilizations for minor infractions. Their war machines spanned countless systems, an unbroken network of power. And yet in the past week, they had lost 6 warships for supply stations and an entire military outpost to a duo of reckless, unpredictable lunatics. The High Chancellor surveyed the council with barely restrained rage. Explain, he demanded, his voice like the scraping of metal against stone. A trembling intelligence officer stepped forward. Chancellor, these humans do not adhere to any structured combat doctrine. They attack our fleets, our infrastructure, and then disappear. They weaponize chaos itself. How is that possible? The Chancellor's voice was calm, but the undertone of fury was unmistakable. A second officer hesitated before answering. Sir, it is their nature. The Chancellor narrowed his reptilian eyes. Elaborate. The officer exhaled. They thrive in disorder. Every strategy we employ against them, they counter with something absurdly reckless yet effective. They hack our networks with primitive software. They crash ships into our defenses. They turn our own forces against us. And continue, the Chancellor growled. The officer swallowed hard. Sir, the humans have meaned us. Silence. Every Dominion officer in the room shifted uncomfortably. Some cast glances at the holographic screens, where Dominion propaganda networks had been infiltrated with strange, incomprehensible images. The humans had started a psychological war. The galaxy, once obedient to the Dominion, was laughing at them. A meme depicting a Dominion general staring blankly at a destroyed warship, captioned, "When you have superior firepower, but forget about plot armor." Another showed the Dominion Emperor, his face photoshopped onto a terrified bureaucrat, surrounded by human stick figures wielding makeshift weapons. The caption, "Local man discovers humans. Instantly regrets it." Perhaps the worst of all was the one now playing across Dominion news networks. A simple, looping video of Max and Lila grinning, standing next to a downed Dominion dreadnought. The words "Get good" scrubs plastered across the screen. The Chancellor's hands clenched into fists. He turned to his highest-ranking general, his voice a low snarl. "I want them erased." The general nodded, motioning to a nearby officer. A holographic display appeared, showcasing a task force of mercenaries, bounty hunters, and Dominion assassins. "We have assembled the deadliest force in the galaxy," the general announced. "No species can survive this level of concentrated firepower. Across the Dominion, the greatest killers in known space received the order. The hunt had begun. Far from the Dominion war chamber, on a derelict space station orbiting a forgotten moon, Max and Lila watched their handiwork unfold on a stolen Dominion broadcast. Max leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. I gotta say, I was hoping for a little more existential despair from them. But I'll take sheer humiliation. Lila, perched on the edge of the console, smirked. You really think this will work? Max shrugged. Worked against every school principal I ever had. Lila rolled her eyes, but there was amusement behind them. The bounty's doubled since yesterday. Every lowlife in the galaxy is after us. Yeah, but we have something they don't, Max said. Which is? He grinned. Absolutely no self-preservation instinct. She snorted. You keep saying that like it's a good thing. Hasn't failed me yet. She checked her wrist console, her expression turning serious. We've got incoming. Max stretched. How bad? Lila tilted her head slightly. Ever seen a flying hive of cybernetic murder wasps? Max blinked. Okay, that is an unnecessary combination of words. Lila tapped the screen, pulling up an image of their newest pursuers. Meet the Krex Consortium. Half machine, half insectoid assassins. Dominion hired them to track us. Max studied the image, then reached into his bag and pulled out a flamethrower. Lila stared. We don't even have a plan yet. Max adjusted the fuel gauge. The plan is fire. Moments later, the station shuddered as the Krex forces landed. The airlock groaned under the pressure of their entry. Lila glanced at Max. Ready? Born ready. The airlock exploded inward, revealing a swarm of mechanical insectoid killers. Their chitinous armor glowed under the dim emergency lights, their metallic limbs clicking with unnatural precision. The lead Krex stepped forward. Surrender, humans. Max ignited the flamethrower. Now, he unleashed a stream of fire, engulfing the first wave of attackers. The Krex, efficient but unprepared for such savage resistance, reeled backward. Lila moved with military precision, dropping enemies with well-placed shots, her sniper rifle humming with each discharge. The battle turned into a whirlwind of gunfire, explosions, and panicked alien shrieks. Max kicked over a fuel canister, sending another wall of flame through the docking bay. Lila disabled the station's gravity, forcing their enemies into disarray. As bodies floated and flames licked at the walls, Max grabbed Lila's wrist. Time to go. They sprinted for the nearest escape vessel, sealing the hatch as more enemies flooded in behind them. Max punched the launch sequence. You ever wonder if maybe we should do something normal for a living? Lila raised an eyebrow. Like what? I dunno. Open a bar. Sell questionable tacos. Lila smirked. If we survive this, we'll talk. The ship rocketed away from the station just as the fuel reserves detonated, consuming everything behind them in a massive fireball. The bounty on their heads had drawn the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, and they were winning. But they both knew it wouldn't last forever. They needed to go bigger. They needed to end this war. The Dominion had sent hunters after them. It was time to turn the tables. Lila studied the Dominion star maps, her fingers tracing potential targets. If we really want to hurt them, we don't just take out ships. We take out their control. Max leaned in. You thinking what I think you're thinking? She nodded. We take out their entire command structure. Max whistled. That's a hell of a target. Lila met his gaze. So let's make a hell of a plan. The Dominion had played its hand. Now it was their turn. And they were about to make the galaxy burn. The Dominion's homeworld loomed ahead, a planet-sized fortress at the heart of its vast empire. Its surface was a lattice of impenetrable cityscapes, defensive turrets, and towering citadels where the highest-ranking officials controlled the galaxy through fear and order. No fleet had ever breached its defenses. No force had ever dared an assault. Max and Lila were doing it with a stolen freighter and a bad attitude. Inside the cockpit, Max flexed his fingers over the controls. So just to be clear, we're hijacking their central command network, broadcasting their deepest, darkest secrets, and then, he gestured vaguely toward the viewport, blowing up whatever looks important. Lila finished assembling a makeshift explosive, barely glancing up. That's the general idea. Max exhaled. You are the love of my life. The ship rattled as Dominion defenses activated. Heavy laser turrets rotated, locking on, filling the void with streaks of plasma fire. The freighter's stolen transponder wouldn't hold up under direct scrutiny. They had seconds before they were either vaporized or captured. "All right, sweetheart," Max muttered, gripping the controls. "Hold on to something." With a flick of his wrist, he set the ship into an erratic spin, barrel rolling between the first wave of defense fire. Explosions lit up behind them as he veered hard left, scraping the freighter's hull against the upper layers of the planetary shield. The alarm systems inside the cockpit wailed in protest. Lila barely looked up. "You're flying this thing like you stole it." "We did steal it." "Then try harder." The comms crackled to life. A Dominion officer, his voice drenched in condescension, sneered through the static. "Unidentified vessel, you are trespassing in restricted airspace. Surrender immediately." Max flicked the comms on. "Yeah, no. But thanks for the concern." The officer sputtered. "You have no chance." Lila cut him off by uploading a data packet into the Dominion's planetary security grid. Almost immediately, emergency sirens erupted across the cityscape below as Dominion defenses inexplicably turned on each other. A series of massive, controlled blackouts spread across the planet's central districts. She smirked. "I just shut down their banking system. Let's see how the bureaucrats handle not being paid." Max grinned. "You're the most dangerous woman in the galaxy." "I try." They dove toward the planetary surface, weaving between spiraling towers as Dominion fighters scrambled in pursuit. Max threw the freighter into a reckless nosedive, then yanked the controls hard, sending the ship skimming over rooftops at breakneck speed. Inside the High Command Central Citadel, panic was setting in. Generals shouted conflicting orders, unable to override the cascading failures in their systems. Tactical displays blinked in and out, showing data corruption, security breaches, and, most infuriatingly, a human meme depicting a Dominion officer weeping over a crashed battleship with the caption, "Shouldn't have pissed off the space monkeys." The Chancellor stormed onto the command floor, seething. "Status report." A trembling officer gulped. "Sir, they've infiltrated the security grid. They've crippled our network and," he hesitated, staring at his screen in disbelief, "they've rerouted all military pensions to a children's fund on some backwater human colony." The Chancellor's claws curled into fists. "Find them. Kill them." Meanwhile, Max and Lila landed the freighter atop the Citadel's command spire, blasting through the hangar doors in a shower of molten steel. The moment the ship touched down, they hit the ground running. Dominion guards flooded into the chamber, weapons raised. Max fired first, diving behind cover as Lila picked off targets with clinical precision. The room turned into a storm of gunfire, bodies dropping as the humans carved a path toward the central command terminal. A hulking Dominion elite stepped forward, easily twice Max's size, exuding raw power. "You think your madness will change anything?" he growled. Max grinned, rolling his shoulders. "Buddy, madness is humanity's entire thing." The alien lunged, but Max sidestepped, delivering a vicious uppercut followed by a close-range shotgun blast to the chest. The elite staggered, barely phased. Max frowned. "Huh, tough one." Lila, still firing at incoming reinforcements, called over her shoulder, "Stop playing and finish it." Max sighed. "Fine." He yanked a high-yield explosive from his belt and shoved it into the elite's armor plating. "Hold this for me, will ya?" The explosion sent the elite crashing through the reinforced command deck. Max dusted himself off. Problem solved. Lila reached the central console, fingers flying over the controls. "We're in." Max joined her, watching as she overrode the Dominion's encrypted network. Screens flickered as classified files spilled onto the galaxy-wide broadcast network. Every Dominion secret, every hidden war crime, every concealed atrocity, now exposed. Planetary riots erupted in real time as Dominion citizens, long-fed propaganda, saw the truth for the first time. The Empire was unraveling, and it was beautiful. Max nudged Lila. "Want to add a cherry on top?" She smirked. "Already did." The Dominion's emperor, a bureaucratic coward with too much power and too little spine, suddenly found himself live-streamed across the galaxy. He sat in his private chamber, mid-sip of some luxurious beverage, utterly unaware of what was happening. Then he noticed the cameras. The entire galaxy watched as he choked on his drink, spluttering. What is this?" Lila's voice echoed through every Dominion network. "Hi there, Your Excellency. Just wanted to introduce you to the concept of accountability." Max leaned in. "Also, your empire's falling apart. Our bad." The Emperor's face turned a sickly shade of purple. "This is treason. This is—" Max clicked a button, cutting the feed. Man, I love a good villain meltdown. The ground shook beneath them. The Dominion's automated defense systems, overridden by Lila's virus, had turned against their own infrastructure. Fires raged across the capital. Warships fell from the sky. The Dominion, once an unshakable force, was eating itself alive. Lila checked the countdown. "We have 60 seconds before this place collapses." Max grabbed her hand. "Then let's not be here." They sprinted back to their stolen freighter, dodging collapsing beams and stray gunfire. The moment they cleared the hangar, Max slammed the thrusters forward, rocketing them into the sky as the citadel behind them crumbled into dust. The Dominion was finished. Their empire, built on order, had been undone by two reckless, infuriating, impossible humans. Lila leaned back in her seat, exhaling. "So, what now?" Max considered. "We could start a rebellion." "Already did that." "Retire?" Lila raised an eyebrow. "You? Retire?" Max grinned. "Fine. New plan. Taco truck. Galactic roadside service. Best damn nachos in space." Lila snorted. "You're serious." "Always." She shook her head, but there was something warm in her expression. "All right, space cowboy. Let's go make some damn good tacos." The freighter disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a broken empire, a liberated galaxy, and a legend that would never die.